this is Katie.
I'm Sam.
And this is Hope and Ever Since. So today we're going to talk a little bit about number 3 on the list of you want to help be an advocate for your children. This is a little bit more specifically for sensory processing difficulties, which is you want to create a sensory-friendly environment. So at home, they suggest set up spaces where your child can calm down or engage their senses, such as a quiet area with soothing items. When our daughter started having more temper tantrums, which again started a little later, because she was more like 4, we just like did a deep dive on it. Basically, like, what are the latest, because again, we're 80s babies, so we didn't know what they did in the 80s. So, no offense to our parents, but 80s, So we were like, well, what is the latest? What do you do? And stuff. And I had seen, actually, like, a little while ago, I had seen a thing about a doctor who is actually, like, I think he's like a brain doctor, more than just like, but he had a very interesting video about how when kids are a certain age, they don't have the front end development or something like that. And then basically when they have a temper tantrum to a certain extent, like, you can't reason with them. There's nothing, you know what I mean? They're basically like their brain is actually literally like broken. You know what I mean? It's just like they're gone, So a lot of people say this, and then he suggested this too, is you just create a safe space, let them, have it, and then just keep, like, when they seem to be calming down, try to engage with them again and go, hey, do you want a hug? Can you talk about it? Anything like that, Now, even though she was older, she was still experiencing tantrums that were like that. Basically, it was just, she's gone. And there's just no reasoning with her. There's no, there's, it's just, she's gone. So we did create a calm down space, and we got books from the library about calm down time, very beginning, low level mindfulness, because, she's a little too young for that. And when she was at school and they were talking about the fact that she was having what I figured out was panic attacks and stuff, I also talked to them like, do you have a calm down space? Can you create a calm down space? Do you have that? Do you have the, just, because I know it's hard because, as a teacher, there's rules and regulations.
Yeah.
But I was just like, is there a way that she could just, go like, here's your corner, chill, and just have your moment, and then you can come back and join us, So we did work on that with her first kindergarten teacher. And, she actually, I think she basically sort of created her safe space, which was she liked to go to the office.
Yeah. Well, the safe space in her own, like, routine, what she would do,
Yeah, she would just, like, if she was getting too overwhelmed or she's getting too upset, she would just go, I don't feel good.
Yeah.
And then she'd go up to the nurse, and the nurse got, like, after about, like, 3 or 4 times, she sort of got that this was sort of, like, gonna be, like, she, like, was talking to us, and she's like, I really just feel like she just wants to come here and chill out. And we're like, that's what she needs to do, go for it. And it was really nice that she got that. And it was really nice that she gave her that option. So she would just, that was, like, the thing she did for school. She would just go and chill out, and then she would come up, and then she would go back to, she'd go up to class after about 10 minutes or something. And I mean, they would have to call us because that's, again, protocol, but they would just say, oh, I asked her, she wants to go back to class. I'm like, okay, glad she's feeling better. And we just figured that's what she was doing to make her feel better. And then she really didn't need to do that. It was only about a month or 2 that she was doing that, and then she was fine.
A couple of times, yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, definitely I would say it's just, we did not know enough to really do this correctly, so I would say we really can't talk about it. Other than that, I just don't think, like, we didn't know about fidgets, and we didn't know she had this, so we didn't really create the exact space. So I would do, if I were you, I would Google it a lot more, talk to doctors, get a lot better information than we had.
Yeah.
But we did do something, and I think it helps.
Yeah.
So the second thing that we'd like to talk about is communicating effectively, which we may or may not be doing in this video. Leave comments. So be specific. Could explain your child's triggers and strategies that work best for them. And then use data, share observations or reports from doctors or your occupational therapists and so forth to back up your requests for accommodations. So I would say this would work with anything that's going on with your kid.
Yeah.
You're always going to need to be extremely detailed. Because again, remember, teachers and doctors, especially doctors, they don't see them that long.
Yeah.
They only have the information you're going to give them.
Yeah.
And you also, unfortunately, do have to create a bridge of communication between the two of them because, you know, privacy laws and everything. You know, it makes sense, but it just, they can't talk to each other. They're not going to, you know, they're not going to be all... Now, we do have an occupational therapist in her school, which is nice, so that, you know, they do converge that, so forth. But, you know, when we're going to go talk to her regular doctor and say, hey, this is what the occupational therapist at her school is saying, you know, and what, you know, where can we bridge this and stuff, you're going to just have to keep going back between the two of them and, you know, health insurance and whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, like the school only has them for a little bit of the day. So, you know, maybe make notes about how the child is handling stuff at home, what works and what doesn't work, so they can, you know, avoid those things.
Because I think you'll find, especially with sensory processing difficulties, at least what we found, is that where she feels comfortable, she's not going to have the same things, you know? So understanding her triggers, which we're going to make a complete other set of videos, basically just based on what are the main triggers that you usually can look for, and did she have those? Does she still have them? We may find she still stuff is still triggering her, and we're not even realizing it.
Yeah.
So, but we can tell you a few things we did notice. Like, okay, so obviously fire alarms was definitely a huge trigger for her. And also when you went into the bathrooms and they have the hair dryers and it's extremely loud hair dryers and it echoes off of all the buildings, off the walls and stuff, that not okay for a while.
Yeah. The crowd noise, just the, you know, the loud, you know, the conversations with the kids and, you know, PE in the lunchroom.
Oh yeah, well I talked about this before. The kindergarten teachers did suggest that you could bring in headphones for your kids, because there are times, like, the cafeteria is new for them. And even if it's just normal, even if your kid doesn't even have this, just that amount of sound all of a sudden is really overwhelming for little kids. It is. So that's actually very normal for kindergarten teachers to ask you to say it's okay to have headphones for the beginning of the year for certain things. But, you know, we would take her to parades and she never really seemed to be that upset.
Yeah, I mean, we had the headphones with us in case, you know, like, because they had the fire trucks or whatever, loud trucks, so.
But, I mean, we would take her to events and so forth and so on. Again, when she was really developing a lot of this stuff, we were in lockdown, so we didn't do a lot of the regular stuff. So we might have noticed a lot more, again, if she hadn't just been doing a really very everyday routine that didn't change, that wasn't varied and stuff. But yeah, so again, we're gonna do another video, but it's really we're gonna do another video. But what I would suggest if you just want to get started is just look up the most common triggers and just, you know, like, when does your kid get upset? And what helps now is that we can, because before I was looking at it such from an emotional place, like, she's upset. What is upsetting her from an emotional viewpoint? You know what I mean? Like, and now I'm like, okay, so what sound just happened? What did she just touch? What did she just eat?
Yeah.
Is there a weird smell? You know, was there a weird smell?
Yeah.
You know, if you look at it from that perspective, then it can be a lot, and, you know, it'll narrow it down a lot easier for you to sort of try to figure out if that's a trigger or not. So those are two other things. And anyway, but just stay hopeful.